feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some
I don't
soccer.
care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here, back with another episode, recording down here at Engle Studio here in Tucson for all of your audio needs. Go check out our socials, which show up on the screen right there. And please give us a follow, a like, and a subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more out there we get, and the more topics we can provide to you. So
I was
come on,
gonna say,
smash that button.
We're coming up on our 200th episode, and we're also going to try and do a live episode with the NFL draft coming up. So if you're interested, get your friends interested, give us some more subscribers, and yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a fun live stream.
It's definitely going to be a good one.
Please stay tuned for 200. That is going to be a really good episode.
Yep.
A really good subject I think you'll enjoy. But today we also have a very good subject.
Yeah, who we got?
We're back on the gridiron with probably one of the most underrated yet accomplished wide receivers in NFL history. Like, his name doesn't come to mind, and then you think about his career and go, holy shit, he really did that.
Oh, yeah, he had more of all of these stats than these other guys who get brought up because there was a lot of flashy receivers in his era.
Yeah, he was the non-diva receiver
Wow.
of the 90s and 2000s. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that early 2000s sprint of,
Oh, yeah, those guys. A lot of them were drafted along with him, but we got today Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison, Marvin Darnell Harrison, born August 25th, 1972. His dad died when he was 2, and his mom, growing up in North Philadelphia, which was not a very pleasant place to live, had to work 2 jobs, and as the oldest sibling, Marvin took on a very parental role as a youngster.
Well, it's North Philadelphia, born and raised.
Yeah, and he's not moving in with his auntie and his uncle in Bel Air. There's none of that. He's stuck.
Yeah, so you could see he kind of grew up in an impoverished kind of area with his mom, like you were saying, struggle. I think she ends up remarrying later, but in that early time, he really had to fill a role of,
Oh, yeah, no, and his mom stressed for him to stay off the street and do well in school, and that really kind of stuck with him. And Marvin was a very obedient child, apparently. His mom, in an SI article I read, said, I only had to tell him to do something once, and it was done. So he grew up a lot faster than a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely threw his childhood behind him with his dad dying and him being the oldest, and I bet he had to take care of his siblings all the time, with his mom working 2 jobs. Yeah.
Set a good example.
Yep.
He was a quiet child. His other siblings wanted to sing and perform, but Marvin was just like, I'm getting too old for this shit.
At age 12.
Yeah, at age 12, he's just comes home from school, cracks a beer, takes out a cigarette, and is like, oh, the life I lead right now. Oh.
It's like, Marvin, you don't have to take a briefcase to school. Just like,
shut your mouth. Yes, I do.
Mom, please. I'm at school all day. I don't want to come home to this.
Mom, Hans Gruber is after me. No. The other guy has diplomatic immunity. No, so Marvin goes to Roman Catholic High School, an all-boys high school in Philadelphia. Grows up playing sports. Very good at basketball. As a junior and senior, city basketball titles won there, and was Philly's top football player for 3 straight years in high school.
Well, he is such a great athlete that it's obvious that he could have made it in basketball onto the college D1 level.
Yeah.
But then everybody was just like, oh, no, he could be one of the best receivers in football. And that's where you see it in the football where you're just like, yeah, he should go on and pursue football.
Well, when you're 6 foot, 190 pounds, you're basically Kenny Lofton.
Yeah.
You can play D1 basketball. You can play pretty well, but
that's your ceiling.
6 foot, 190 pounds as a receiver, particularly in this era, that's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, granted, the guys are getting larger, but 6 foot,
Still,
190,
nobody's
that's good
complaining.
size. Yeah. So he decides to stay close up in the Northeast and attend Syracuse. Not necessarily known so much for their football as their basketball.
I was just going to say, because they really do have 2 like really well-known stars come out of the Syracuse team, and you're just kind of like, did they ever have that before?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Besides Jim Brown and the running
But
backs.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's like way before
in the long time ago.
in the long ago. And that's what I'm thinking. It was just like not recently. They're only known for their basketball, and then they have Donovan McNabb.
That is not the guy from the Cosby Show.
Or as it better known, Don Cheadle. You know what I mean? Like it's so good. And that's what was crazy was this Syracuse team was actually good with these two offensive weapons.
And it doesn't happen, though, until Harrison's senior season.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't play much as a freshman in 92. 93, he leads the team in TD catches with 7. 813 receiving yards. 94, by the way, they're missing bowl games. They're about a 500 team his sophomore and junior years.
Yeah, they're not a great team. And that's something that I find really interesting is in this senior year that they both, Donovan and him, really both turn it on, and they're just kind of like, oh, they are potential all-stars. Or not all-stars, I mean NFL stars.
Because in 87, I think they went 11-0-1, and that was like the 1 year in between. Now they're finally starting to get good again.
Yep.
So in 95, has an amazing season. First team All-Big East, 56 catches, over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. And Marvin's a pretty good punt returner at the collegiate level with 2 touchdowns. And they go to the Gator Bowl against Clemson and shut them out 41-0, which...
It's a great cap on a college career when you think about it, especially going to a mid-level football program and then taking them in your last year to a bowl game, and he ends up being the total reception or yards leader.
Yeah, and that stood for
Syracuse
a while.
until I think 2019 or something.
Yeah. So leaves after 1995. He gets his degree in retail management.
I saw that. I thought that was funny.
Gonna manage a Kohl's. Maybe he'll manage a bar one day, Chris. I don't know.
You know?
He's coming out in the 96 draft. Go listen to that episode. It's about in the 70s somewhere. It's actually really good. We actually talk about Marvin a little bit in there, and it's known for one thing more than anything else: how many awesome receivers are in this draft class.
It's a list in the first round. You know what I mean? Where you're just kind of like, oh, and then there's more. Yeah, it's crazy.
There's more. It's always just like, there's more. But Sterling Sharp, a guy we did an episode on, said he was the best receiver in the draft class. He said he would have taken him number 1 over Keyshawn Johnson, who was taken number 1.
And I feel like Keyshawn Johnson maybe had a better ceiling looking at coming out of college, or you know what I mean with that.
He had more tools and was bigger.
Yep.
But Marvin had the best route running ability, the best hands, decent size, and could create separation like nobody's business.
Yes.
And I think Sterling saw that. Mel Kiper was super high on him, too, like a lot higher than a lot of other people.
Higher than his hair.
Much higher than his hair.
That's the highest compliment I can give him.
That's
and
right.
But you're right. Because I feel like there was such an abundance of receivers that you can kind of pick your guy and be like, yeah but this guy is going to, and you're just kind of like, yeah, any one of these guys is going to be. Yeah.
Terrell Owens, Gerald Owens, Moose Muhammad. Like, the list goes on. Listen to that episode. It's actually really good. Anyway, he's taken 19th overall by the Indianapolis Colts in the first round.
Via trade.
That's right, yeah.
Falcons made a trade. Jeff George.
That's right. This pick had been traded, I think, a whole bunch of different times, and they were able to settle on it and take Marvin there. And he goes to a team that had just come off a AFC Championship appearance. They're kind of veteran-led, and in 96 has a great rookie season. 64 grabs for 836 yards and 8 touchdowns. You're thinking the Colts are pretty good. You got Jim Harbaugh, Marshall Faulk. They make the playoffs at 9-7. Granted, they're bounced in the first round of the playoffs.
I was going to say there's a lot of first-round bounces here, but you see the future building blocks.
You see the building blocks in place.
Some elder statesmen, but you're like, oh man, we got some weapons.
And then 1997 happens, which is an unmitigated disaster for this franchise. They go 3-13. Harrison's still awesome, mind you. 73 catches.
I was going to say, he's still developing.
Yeah.
You know.
But he doesn't. Harbaugh's at the end of the line at this point in his career. But because you're so bad, the next year, you get the first pick in the draft.
And that's what was actually so lucky about 97 is if you look at 96, they were actually a good team. 97, they were so unbelievably bad that they lucked in to getting your boy.
With the 5 head.
Wowie.
Yeah, that's right.
Peyton
Marvin runs the best damn routes.
And then this makes a Colts team that it's really kind of like stamped on this time frame.
Yeah, because they got Tarek Glenn in 97 to shore up left tackle. 98, they get Manning. Although they finished 3-13 and are picking inside the top 5 again in 99, you're on the right track.
Yep.
Because then in 99, you take Edgerrin James to replace Marshall Faulk, which not necessarily a downgrade at all. Mm-hmm. Some might say an upgrade. In 99, it's a very special season. They go 13-3 and win the AFC East. Marvin leads the NFL in receiving yards this year. Career high 14.5 yards a catch on 115 catches. This is like a 7-8 year window in his career where it's like he's the best wide receiver in the league and you wouldn't know it.
I was just going to say that. Like, he's almost always brought up third, second, where it's just like, oh, yeah, so Marvin over there and sorry, where is he? He's playing for the Colts. He's such a
Baltimore, right?
second. Yeah. He's such a secondary thought, which is so crazy because he literally is, for 6 or 7 years, number one on all of the statistics.
And he's so quiet. Like, he's not one of those T.O. type of look at me receivers.
Which was so big in this era.
Yep.
The, popcorn and just all of the
hot dogging, the showboating, which is awesome.
All of the stuff that our dads would fucking...
They'd shake. Old man yells at cloud, and I'm like...
Shake harder, boy.
Shake harder. Now you have some turnip juice in Indianapolis. So 12 touchdown catches this year. He's first team All-Pro. This is actually the first of 8 straight seasons he makes the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
Indy goes into the playoffs. They get a first-round bye. And now we see really the beginning of some issues in the postseason for not only Marvin, who does not particularly have great postseason stats, as we'll get into at the end of his career. But they lose the divisional round to Tennessee 19-16 at home, and huge disappointment for them.
I was going to say the Colts really go through a bunch of really disappointing playoff, like really first not first round, but you know what I mean, first game bounce outs, and you're just kind of like, well, that's horrible.
Yeah,
and nobody shows up.
Most the worst. Like 2000 has a great year, led the league in with catches with 102 and also 1,413 yards, 14 touchdowns. This dude's just automatic.
Yep,
just automatic for you. They lose in the wild card to Miami in overtime, 23-17, because their kicker misses a field goal. We may have brought him up before, Mike Vanderjagt. Don't worry, we'll bring him up again. And I'm sure Marvin, the hate is brewing inside him and all these first-round playoff exits. But 2001, they just scuttle down the stretch. This is the famous Jim Mora playoffs rant. Doesn't stop Marvin. Career high 15 touchdowns, 1,524 receiving yards.
Well, and this is where I feel like maybe where you don't count him as one of the, or as the best receiver, because there's so much back-to-back-to-back playoff dropout where you thought they were going to be, where you thought the Colts were really going to make a Super Bowl run, and literally first game in, they just keep losing.
Well, he puts up all these great regular season stats, and then you forget about him. But then you get into the postseason, and you go, where's that 88 guy that did all of this? And
just didn't show up. For these 3 years especially, like, you know what I mean? Like 99 to 2002, and then,
2003, they get back on track. Or 2002, he had one of the greatest single seasons in the NFL. Let's talk about his 2002. Probably one of the best seasons by a wide receiver ever in the history of the league. A then record 143 catches. That's almost 20 more than like Sterling Sharp and Chris Carter in the same amount of games.
So it's such a ridiculous statistic, and this is why going into 2002, I bet everybody was just like, all right, we're clicking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He had like 1,700 yards. It was
double-digit TDs again.
I was just gonna say it wasn't just dumping it off, and it was such a ridiculous season, especially with Manning being as accurate as he was, where he would just get that half a yard break.
And now you have Reggie Wayne, and you have you're about to get Dallas Clark the next year. You have a solid offensive line, and Edgerrin James is just carving you up all sorts of different ways. And Tony Dungy's your new coach. Your defense is getting fast.
Oh yeah,
and aggressive.
This is when Dungy came in. Yeah.
But unfortunately, their 10-6 record does not net them a division title, and they have to go on the road in the playoffs this year. And they go and play the Jets in New Jersey, and they lose, Chris. But they don't just lose. It's spectacular.
Yes. And this is what I mean, where you just see the fall off is so crazy in the playoffs that it's one of those really top ranked teams that just couldn't figure it out for 4 or 5 years.
Like, it's not that they lost. Anyone can lose in the postseason.
Lost to the Jets.
They lost to the Jets 41-0. You can Google that. It's real. It's disturbing.
With what people are saying, one of the best offenses going in.
So Marvin's 30
They
years
just
old.
don't do anything.
Yeah, he's 30 years old, and he hasn't won the team won a playoff game.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. 2003, they finally get back on track, win the AFC South. 94 catches, 1,272 yards, and 10 touch. The amount of double-digit touchdown reception seasons this guy has is ridiculous. And you'd never know it. You'd never even think it. But he's arguably the best hands in the league, arguably the best route runner, and one of the toughest SOBs at the wide receiver position.
For sure, yes.
They finally win a playoff game this year. I do remember my dad watching this game. They beat Denver 41-10.
Oh, jeez.
I
saw that, yeah.
It was just an ass. This is the only postseason that Marvin has touchdown receptions, actually. 2003.
Yeah.
They played the 2-seeded Chiefs at Arrowhead in a shootout. They end up winning 38-31. And then they go to the AFC Championship game in Foxborough to play the Patriots. And Ty Law essentially makes Peyton Manning and his receivers his bitch that day. In the snow, 24-14. And this is when the Colts start complaining about changing the pass interference rules. But they're iced. They're completely, and Marvin is iced in this game.
Yes.
Like,
they can't really do anything, especially with the Pats defense in this era is kind of just a total shutdown.
it's just mean.
It's just mean.
Like, what they did to them was just mean. Doesn't matter, because 2004, another division title for the Colts. Another season with 15 receiving touchdowns for Marvin. Another first-round wild card weekend destruction of the Broncos. Almost hung a 50-burger on him. Over 1,000 yards again for Marvin. 86 grabs. He's 32 and still doing this. The consistency with this guy is like...
That's what you're saying. Over this 6 or 7 years, he was the best receiver. I don't care. Like, it's such a ridiculous thing. And we haven't even got into this next year where he has, like, the best stretch of ever that he has. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, the only people that have stretches like this as wide receivers in the NFL are, like, Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
I mean...
That's who, at the end of his career, a lot of people are like, no, it's really him and Jerry. Jerry has that above him because he has so many more.
Jerry played probably a decade more than
Yes.
he did, and nothing to sneeze at, but yeah. This type of consistency is nuts. But because they're, in 2004, they're the 3 seed, they have to go on the road in the divisional round, and they go to New England again. And lose 20-3. And that can't win reputation's following him, Chris.
Well, it's especially with just running into the Pats, but it really is. They're looked at as this regular season juggernaut and this postseason.
Yeah.
Nut or not. I don't know. I didn't know.
Nut or not.
I don't know what I was going to go for there.
They're just blowing their load too quickly.
Blowing their load in the regular season. But they really have that stigma of, especially I imagine for like the fans that would like hate, fans that would hate on him would just be like, well, great regular season, but we're done.
Yeah, exactly. Just like can't win it. And then in 2005, the narrative's going to change. They start 13-0. Marvin leads the league in TD catches with 12. Another 1,100-yard plus season. They're 14-2. Win the AFC South as the number 1 seed. And they beat New England in the regular season. They don't even have to play them in the championship if they win in the divisional round. And we did an episode on this.
And they get bounced.
Marvin just decides to not do anything until the second half of this ball game,
and
along with the rest of his team.
I was just going to say, it wasn't just him, but really the Colts didn't show up until the second half, which you see that sometimes you're just kind of like, what happened there? What happened at the beginning of that fucking game?
One team just held the ball for fucking ever. So they end up losing 21-18 on another missed field goal at the end by Mike Vanderjagt.
Vanderjagt us out of that win, and it was not fun.
Authorities have been trying to locate the body of a missing hiker since Friday. Lois Einhorn. 2006, though.
Finkel and Einhorn.
Together, how? This is, he's 34 years old.
Yeah.
Name me a non-34-year-old receiver that's not Jerry Rice who has 95 catches, 1,366 yards, and 12 touchdowns.
Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Yeah, Rod Tidwell. Say what you will.
Tidwell. You're not wrong. The consistency in his old age and the lack of injury.
Well,
that's what somebody else was saying.
Talk about how meticulous he was and just like hardworking he was to get his body ready for Sundays.
Yep.
Like nobody outworked Marvin Harrison as far as just not only the discipline as far as playing his position, but the discipline and preparation it took to just play in the NFL.
Yes.
And you never would have known it because he never talked to anybody. But the Colts, they go 12-4. They win their division again. They win the wild card, 28-3 against the Chiefs. They go to the divisional round and upset the Ravens in Baltimore on 5 field goals because they have a new kicker.
I was just going to...
Adam Vinatieri.
5 made field goals.
And that is not an easy stadium to kick in either. They win 15-6 away. And then they get the AFC title game, and although they're down 21-3, they overcome those New England Patriots. They win 38-34. Go to the Super Bowl 41, Marvin's first Super Bowl.
Marvin's first one, Peyton's, everybody on the Colts' first one, I feel like at this point.
For Super Bowl in Indianapolis.
If you've been on this team.
And then on February 4th, they have the pleasure of facing Rex Grossman and the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
Have a great game, win 29-17, and finally win a Super Bowl, and that pretty much cements Marvin's Hall of Fame career.
I was going to say, the only game that they were like kind of in risk was the beginning of that Pats game, but then they come back. And then in the Super Bowl, they just kind of dominate this Bears team that,
doesn't have an offense?
They were the Bears.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I can't even 2,000
who came
Bears.
through in this game, though, for Indy was Adai and Rhodes on the ground.
Oh.
They ran up and down the field on them because it was kind of a rainy day and kind of bad conditions. But, yeah, still,
Super Bowl champion. Yeah,
that's right. 2007, this is kind of sad because this is the first season, I think, since his third year in the league that Marvin is missing games.
I was just going to say,
he misses a lot of games.
This is his first big injury for, like we were saying, this 6 or 7 year period that he just dominated. And it kind of, being the age that he was, it took him out for, I think, the whole season, or at least...
Played in only the first 5 games.
I was just going to say, once he got that injury, and then I think he played in the playoff game, but it wasn't a full start kind of thing.
Yeah, the playoff game, in the divisional round, they get another home game in first round bye because they go 13-3. Phillip Rivers goes out of the game at halftime, and they lose to Billy Volek.
Yeah, I remember that.
They lose 28-24 to the Chargers, who always seem to just shit in their apple pie, no matter in this era. Marvin comes back at 36 the following season. You can tell age is kind of starting to catch up with him.
Age and I imagine this injury. That's the thing
Yeah.
that's crazy is, but he starts breaking records in 2008.
That's right. What ones is he breaking, my friend?
December 14th versus the Lions, he gets his 1,095th reception, passing Tim Brown to be third all time. And you think about how many games he has, because I'm going to bring this up at the end, but just his average receptions per year and game and all of that is
he
crazy.
played a lot fewer seasons than I believe than Tim Brown, too.
Yes.
I mean,
and then he breaks another one, December 2008, where he gets his 1100th reception, 1102, to become the second leader, beating Chris Carter, who spells it wrong.
with an R, no H. He could go by Gradual. Remember that? That's his real name.
It's true. Oh, God, I forgot that. That's such a great. But yeah, he becomes the second all-time reception leader, which I think is so well deserved. As to if you look at wide receivers, you just kind of like, yeah, he should be up at number 2.
He was like Jerry Rice, just a consummate professional, good for X, Y, and Z stats every year, barring an injury.
Yes, seriously.
Like, kept himself in the same type of condition as Rice. Kind of quiet, too.
Kind of quiet.
On and off the field.
Definitely.
So, I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, 2008, they don't win the division that year. Titans do. What ends up happening, they go to the wild card to play the Chargers again, and they lose in overtime on a Darren Sproles run, and that's his last game.
Well, I thought this was because he played for the Colts his entire career. He told the Colts that he's going to take 2009 off and see if he can come back, which is always almost a no.
Yeah.
And the report that I read, it was just like, and then after the 2009 season, he quietly retired from the NFL.
He quietly
and
retired.
That is such a fucking Marvin Harrison, the second all-time reception leader, quietly retires from the NFL.
That's like Barry Sanders sending in a telegram to his local Wichita newspaper. I'm retired. Hashtag Lions have broken my spirit.
Oh, God.
But bringing up his stats just here, because it's amazing.
That's what I was,
1,102 catches, 14,580 yards, 128 touchdowns. Postseason, 66 grabs, 883 yards, 2 touchdowns. As I said, both of them in 2003. 8-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time second-team All-Pro. And this is an era when the wide receivers were awesome.
Yes.
This is like the early to mid-'90s, how good they are. Twice led the league in receiving yards, twice in receptions. 2000's All-Decade team. And the NFL's 100th anniversary team. Obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer when he was eligible.
Yes.
You know, but amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So his son will probably be a first-round receiver taken next year out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
But let's talk
Marvin
Harrison, the player, awesome. But let's talk about his quiet retirement, Chris.
Well,
his quiet.
I feel like stuff always happens. Something happened because we're like you were saying, he owns a couple of businesses now.
Retail management.
He opened up a bar. He opened up a car wash, I believe.
Playmakers in Chucky's garage. Mm-hmm.
And then he has a problem with one local drug dealer who was kicked out of all of his establishments and decided that he didn't like that and he could go wherever he wanted, and he kept coming back.
Dwight Dixon kept coming back.
A Mr. One Dwight Dixon.
And by April 29th, 2008, there was a verbal argument between Harrison and Dixon. He wouldn't let him into his sports bar Playmakers. And there's some discrepancies on what happened after the verbal altercation, Chris.
So various reports, this is all alleged, is our boy Marvin comes out with a gun in each hand. And you know me, I don't see very well, so I just start firing.
So I started blasting. I'll reach for a pack of cigarettes.
And then I'm just going to start blasting. But that's kind of what happened. So he shoots this guy Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Whoever shot this guy shoots him in the hand. Somebody else gets shot, I think, in the back. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't end it there.
It doesn't end him. Dixon alleges that Harrison shot him, and then by January 6, 2009, Philadelphia District Attorney Lynn Abraham said the gun that shot Dixon was the same model as Marvin Harrison's. However, they did not know who pulled the trigger, so they would not pursue charges, as there were also conflicting witness statements on what happened. So this one's for the streets, Chris. This one event.
This one's for the streets, and then we come back a little bit later.
Yeah, we come back a little bit later because a week within the first shooting, they decided that Harrison was not a suspect.
They weren't gonna
And then
question him
also
or anything.
Dixon used a false name and violated his probation that he was already on, or for filing his false report. And the attorney sought a new trial as he violated his probation from a previous case. And Harrison was also sued by a man named Robert Nixon, who was the victim in the crossfire, who claimed Harrison was the shooter. Claimed was the shooter. And then we get to July 21st, 2009, when Dixon, just running those streets, he ends up dead.
You know what happened.
Shot several times in a car 2 blocks away from Playmakers, of all places.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man. The universe is a crazy place. Allegedly was murdered by Harrison's cousin.
Dixon claimed that's who it was.
But that's all on the streets.
That's for the streets,
It's
Chris.
for the streets. I feel bad because it was somebody that was constantly aggravating a business owner that was a semi-celebrity or whatever in this. Not even he was a celebrity in this, especially in his era, his like hometown. But man, that should have been solved a different way because that was crazy.
It's where you hire a well-renowned cooler who goes throughout the country fixing up rowdy honky-tonks, and he will solve all of your problems and revoke throat privileges. No need for firearms here.
It's true.
But
you know why? Because we got each other's back.
you could just say, let's just say Dixon was 86th from life as opposed to the bar. Anyway, it doesn't end here, though, because in June 16th, 2010, Shauna Sale of ESPN The Magazine discussed how police confiscated a 9mm handgun at a routine traffic stop when Harrison was in Philadelphia. He tried to see if they matched the 3 casings from the April 2008 shootings. Dixon said it came from a second gun, and authorities matched the bullets to the separate gun that Harrison owned that was allegedly there when the shooting happened.
Still a mystery as to...
Still a mystery. Cops said Harrison on one of these was trying to hide the gun.
No.
They had noticed it. They had pulled
Allegedly.
him over. They searched his Escalade as he was driving the wrong way down a one-way street. I don't know how that happens, Chris. Perhaps money, perhaps, you know what? Maybe he just didn't do it. He just didn't do it. That's why we say allegedly on this podcast.
Lack of evidence, sir.
Lack of evidence. God bless our criminal justice system.
Yeah.
And then
it's such a crazy story, especially from him, what everybody says about him. You're just kind of like, I don't know. You just really don't know the ins and outs of what occurred. So it's
just a very odd retirement considering how quiet the rest of it has been.
But I imagine this guy could have had problems with somebody else, but there's just so much evidence. You're just kind of like, oh, we're not looking into this?
Oh, yeah, I mean...
We're not looking into this?
I guess this isn't CSI Philadelphia.
Ah, son of a...
I mean, there is that one scene where they find a dead Santa after the inability to convict OJ, but...
So true.
So true. But Marvin Harrison, aside from all this... One of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history, a Hall of Famer, and...
Yeah, Super Bowl winner.
The silent assassin? No, that's Pete Sampras.
Ah, damn it. Well, he'll take it just for one night.
There you go.
Thank you.